Hey Matt, I thought I would give this just a quick screencast because I was sick of typing. So you are designing this technically correctly. It's just not turning out the way you expect because you are using local variables instead of global variables. So we'll get into what that means here in a second. I will share back to you this here replit that you sent me so that you can probably a little bit easier see what these comments in here are. Essentially what is happening is this. I will start with your main before we get to the functions. Here in main, you have declared int x and int y. And that's, can I call it historically correct? It's what we've been doing up until now, and that's perfectly okay. But what happens is this x and this y want to be local to main. So essentially, you are never assigning any values to this x and y because when you simply rather do your cout statement, what's happening is this call to get length or get width are outputted to the terminal window. So I'll go here. So from line 41, when I say cout get length, it shoots the program control up here. That's where you're seeing that enter length from. So now you're going to see in x, which is this right here, this local variable called int x. So what happens is int x never got past anything. It was past a null, nothing. So now you're entering in x, which you are actually assigning whatever value the user is doing is right there. So actually this part works out okay. This return x would actually work out okay because you've got a value stored in x now. When this is done, it would come back down here to line 41 and whatever happened with the variable that you assigned up there should be returned here. But the problem is on line 41, you're not giving that return value anywhere to get stored. The return value simply gets eliminated at the end of the line right here when line 41 is done. So what I'm going to do is make a couple of really small, quick changes here. And those two small changes are going to get this program to work correctly. And it's not a huge deal at all. So now I've come back through here and I've made a couple of really quick changes. First and foremost, you'll notice what I did is just one small change to both get length and get width. I have taken out of the parentheses any parameters. So a parameter says that here on line 7, get length is expecting you to pass it some data, which I don't really need to do. I actually want get length to pass data back to main. Same deal goes here on get width. Previous to this, you had suggested that get width was going to receive some data, which it's not. It's simply going to pass the data back to main. The other change I made is down here in main on lines 43 and 44. Rather than have x and y in cout statements, I actually have them in assignment statements. So x equals get length. So what this is going to do is suggest that when C++ comes to line 43 here, 43 is going to say, okay, look, I have this integer x, but right now it's got a default value, so 0. But what I want to do is assign that the value that's returned by calling getLength. So right here it's going to make a call to getLength and it's going to come up here to line 7. I've got a new declaration for a local copy. So this int x is going to be thrown away. Not that that matters because we're going to assign this to the copy of main that we have, or the copy of x rather, that we have in main. So now when you enter in x, you're going to return that value. So here I've just run it and I said 5 and 5. So now the value 5 is going to be sent back down here to line 43. This line is going to say, hey, get length is done, and assign whatever was returned, so the value 5, back here to x. Line 44 does exactly the same thing. It says, hey, y is an integer with a default value of 0. So now what we want to do is assign the result of get with in the same way if I put 5 plus 5 over here, I would assign the result of that math over into integer y. That's what I'm doing here with this function call to get with. So get with comes up here to line 15. I declare a local variable that I'm going to throw away, but it doesn't matter. I call it y. I enter in a y width. As you can see over here, that width is 5, and it's going to return y. So that value gets returned, so that's 5, and 5 is assigned to y over here, just like it was regular math. The only thing I did with your final statement here, number 45, is say that area equals, so that way when we run it, it just looks a little cleaner. So 5, 6, area equals 30. That's exactly the result I would expect. So you were really, really close there. But the thing to watch out for here, which I will admit to you is a little bit outside of what we've kind of seen to date, is the idea of global versus local variables. I can reuse int x as a variable many different times over the course of a program. As a matter of fact, if in double get with I wanted to say int x, I could do that again. The value in doing that is everything there is local. As long as my function has a return type, which it does. So function has a return type of double, so that means it's going to spit out a double value here. As long as I have a return type, it's okay. I can use assignment the same way I've been doing all semester long so far. Right down here to assign that returned value to a variable that's good inside of main, which is what I'm doing right here. The other way to get around this would simply be by taking int x and int y, and instead of declaring them inside of main, which makes it a local variable, if I cut that out and come up here to line, I don't know, 5, let's say, and paste it here, now int x and int y are global variables. That means the very same int x and int y are good in get length, get width, and main. So that one small change would have made the original program work as intended. The other two small changes that I had made there on lines, now it's 10 and 18, where I'm not passing any parameters, I'm not passing any data to those functions that you've created here. I'm simply asking them to return me the result of whatever process it is that they've done. So either one of those two fixes will work. You were pretty close as far as functions go. So you were